Blwyddyn newydd dda. Happy New Year, everybody, and welcome back to not welcome back, but welcome to 2021, and welcome back to the University of South Wales Fashion Design Year 1. How exciting. All right, I'm going to go through Fashion Design 2 here for you, and as a task, as part of this project, I'd like you to unpack this brief, and you know how to do that. So you break your briefs down into 4 distinct categories: definitions, specifications, parameters, and scope for creativity, just like you do the fashion design one. All right, shall we make a move? Let's take a look at the module aims first. To develop a design-based attempt to resolve global issues facing the fashion industry. To combine design and production to develop a solution to a defined brief. To explore circular design as a tool for problem solving. So there are 3 module aims. Let's look at the content summary. The fashion industry has had a significantly negative impact on the environment, its workforce, and consumers. The circular design model offers a design-based solution to mitigating these problems. In this module, students will combine the design and production process to attempt a solution to the major issues facing the fashion industry. So when you're looking at your definition, circular design is definitely probably number 1 you want to put on there, seeing as it comes up a couple of times in the first page. But all the prep work that I'm going to get you to do will help you answer those questions, but jump into that research early. Let's take a look at your learning outcomes. Learning outcome 1, develop a sustained design process in response to a defined brief. Learning outcome 2, identify a range of problem-solving techniques in response to a defined brief. So if we take a look at these learning outcomes and pull them apart a little bit, the first one is really looking at sustainable design process. So to understand circular design, it's important you understand sustainable design. And what it's saying is develop a process based on those ideas and theories, circular and sustainable design, in response to a brief, which is what we'll look at in a second. And the second one is identify a range of problem-solving techniques in response to a defined brief. So not just one technique, but we're looking at trying a few out, identifying a few, and then choosing the most appropriate. Here we go. Let's jump through it. The brief. Bum, bum, bum. Products, objects, organisms move along an inevitable cycle. Some cycles are finite and some cycles are infinite. They're probably 2 things you want to define. The fashion industry operates a finite cycle. Your challenge is to use design to alter the cycle of your given product to transform a finite cycle into an infinite cycle. And it's a fairly tricky thing, moving from a straight line to a circle. Using your given Jotner product as a starting point, important to look at who they are, design a product that increases or maintains the value and function of your original resource. Okay, so from that first paragraph, there's a lot of stuff to be drawn out. So we need to know who Jotner are. They're our industry partner for this particular brief. This is a live brief. We need to know what finite and infinite mean. We need to know how to transform a finite cycle into an infinite cycle. So I'd be looking for examples of that, maybe in other industries, for example. And I'll be looking at design a product that increases or maintains the value and function of your original resource. So that's really interesting. There's quite a specific set of wording there. Now that wording actually is the definition of upcycling. Not what you see on Pinterest and not what you see on social media, but maintaining the value or in fact increasing the value and function of your original resource, and maintaining and increasing the function of your original resource. So worth exploring there, and maybe defining the word function. How do we define function in terms of fashion? All right, let's move down. Consider the following. Is it possible to change the way we see objects in their lifespan? Is fashion inherently unethical? Is it possible to use design to change the way we consume products? Is the traditional cradle-to-grave method of production hardwired into humanity, or is cradle-to-cradle possible? So looking at cradle-to-grave and looking at cradle-to-cradle, those 2 things need defining for sure out of that. And I would say unethical. I wonder if we could find evidence to suggest that fashion isn't unethical, or is unethical perhaps. Or are there precedents, think about what we did in first term, are there precedents there to see how objects can be looked at in a different way and how their lifespan can be explored in a different way? And are there any precedents that use design to change the way we consume products? I think a really easy and simple example of that is something like clothing rentals. That we stop buying products and we rent clothes instead. Rent the runway is a great example of that. Let's keep going. Design, illustrate, and produce an innovative fashion solution. Okay, so when we say innovative fashion solution, we're not just focusing on garments here. We're talking about the garment and everything around it. Okay, let's take a look. Design, illustrate, and produce an innovative fashion solution that is informed by your research into ethical issues within the fashion industry in Fashion Cultures 1. Displays innovation, risk-taking, and experimenting through upcycling via trial and patent development. Uses your research into art movements as an aesthetic starting point. Connects to the ethos of Jotna. Okay, so 4 very clear things. That first point says that you must connect your research in Fashion Cultures 1 with the research you do for Fashion Design 2. So looking at ethical issues. There's lots of ethical issues to look at in fashion. Innovation and risk-taking and experimenting through upcycling via trial and patent development. So that's really asking you to explore the physical production of garments and take risks through that. Now that might require you to do some research into different circular or sustainable ways to produce garments. Uses your research into art movements as an aesthetic starting point. So you're probably going to connect particular art movements with your aesthetics for this module. So you look at them as a starting point. Now, aesthetic starting point is not the same as your ethical starting point and not the same as your design or conceptual starting point, but it's how things look. And it connects to ethos of Jotna. So that requires you to understand who they are, what they stand for, and who their consumers are and what they stand for. Let's take a look at your materials. Your material choice must inform and push your design decisions. That's interesting. So inform and push your design decisions. So that would probably suggest that your material choices happen before your final designs do. Your material use should be informed and extended by your research into Jotna, the consumer, product specifications, and market. So understanding all those things, as we said. You will need to propose new approaches to the material used to meet the challenge of this brief. So new approaches might mean different uses for a type of material, or it might mean different materials for a particular purpose, or new ways of producing a material, or new ways of using a material. You will need to use all of the materials supplied. So let's say you're given a piece of a product. You need to use the entire product. You can't just use a small portion of the product and a bunch of other material. You should build on your material experimentation done during Fashion Design 1. So you created a unique material in Fashion Design 1, and of course you pushed it further with Fashion Engineering 1. Your material would need to adhere to the principle of waste equals food. Okay, so we have to unpack that, and we have to define what that means. So worth doing some research into that. There is an expectation that you will use materials in a socially and environmentally responsible ways. Okay, so basically it says that you can't burn down a forest to create the thing that you're doing, or melt a bunch of plastic in a closed room. You will need to justify your material and construction techniques as part of your final assessment. It is your responsibility to supply all consumable materials for this brief. So you need to budget and you project manage the classics. Let's take a look at the presentation for this brief. All physical work will be submitted as a total package in an appropriate format clearly labelled with your name, student number, and module code. Okay, very important. I would suggest a hanger with your name, student number on it, and a garment bag with your name and student number on it. And obviously any physical book you hand in will have the same thing. All digital work must be submitted as a PDF with the following file name, your name, project name, PDF, through the Blackboard Assessment Portal. Take the time to make sure that your work has been uploaded, and obviously under 100 megabytes so that it's easy to upload. You will have the opportunity to present your work for feedback during formative sessions and to a final panel during the summative assessment. Consider how you develop the summative presentation, including room setup, supporting materials, and how you order your presentation. Your ethical approach to design should be carried through to your promotional package. Consider promotional ways to extend your consumers' awareness Oh dear, should be an apostrophe there probably. Consumers' awareness of fashion consumption. Let's take a look at your assessment. Your assessment to this brief will be twofold. Now this is all starting to look very familiar, I'm sure. Firstly, through a formative presentation of your potential solution to the brief, where you'll present the following: a sketchbook documenting the design process and initial research to support your design theories, evidence of a connection between fashion cultures, fashion communication, and fashion design, 3 developed concepts communicated by a range of concept sketches and sample ideas used to test the parameters of the brief, a preliminary lineup that clearly communicates design intentions for each concept. Okay. Draft documentation of a detailed timeline that shows evidence of your project management. So project management is a very, very important part of fashion design. So understanding how you manage multiple deadlines and multiple ideas, that's why we practiced it in Fashion Engineering 1. So it's your chance to use that technique again. Secondly, through a summative presentation of your final solution to the brief. Your summative assessment will include the following: a developed sketchbook documenting the design process that shows evidence of evaluation and refinement, a detailed timeline that shows evidence of your design process and project management, a written justification for the design and production process, a promotional lineup depicting the designs from front, back, and side, the production of one finished toile complete with final patterns, a verbal and visual presentation of your final solution, a specification sheet for your final design including a lay plan. Don't get those wrong. Let's take a look at our schedule. So as you can see, our term technically starts on the week beginning the 25th of the 1st, but you've got a couple of weeks before that you can do some work. So we can see here that in the week beginning the 11th of the 1st, week -1, I get it, it seems crazy, but that's what we're calling it. I'm looking at you to watch this video. So I'll send this out to you today, so the week prior to this one on the schedule, but it gives you some chance to watch it maybe a couple of times. Now your task will be to unpack the brief. Don't forget how to do that. You did it in Fashion Design 1, and you did it a little bit in Fashion Engineering 1, so lots of opportunities there. Then the following week is the week of your presentations, so don't forget to sign up to those. You've got quite a few videos to watch here, and I'm going to ask you to research 3 designers. Now when I say research 3 designers, I don't just mean Google sustainable designers. I mean actually do some proper research and explore 3 designers that engage in circular design. Now they don't have to be fashion designers, but looking at how 3 designers engage in circular design. Now what I'd suggest is that one of those designers might be located in Europe, one of those might be located in the USA perhaps, and one in a country that is neither of those 2 places. If we look broader through the world, you'll find lots of interesting circular design processes happening in Africa and throughout Asia and throughout Oceania. New Zealand especially produces some exceptional circular design. So worth exploring those. Then the following week, of course, we have our first in-person session where we're starting to look at finding our user and participating in the design process. So looking at user-centered design or human-centered design. Then the following sessions are who we're designing for. I'll draw your attention to the session in week 3. We have formative assessment. So we're going to fully break down the brief after you present your concepts and define which of your concepts is the most appropriate for the brief. Now that'll be done in class, in a studio setting, the same as it was for the last design module. Then you will have a technical tutorial the following week, and then you'll spend 2 weeks producing your final piece before testing your work against the brief and practicing your pictures. Let's take a look at your assessment items checklist. So let's take a look at the 10th and 11th of Feb. We have your formative presentation. We're looking here, so this is a studio presentation, as you can see on this side. It is formative. So we're looking at a sketchbook documenting the design process and initial research to support your design theories. Evidence of a connection between fashion cultures, fashion communication, and fashion design. 3 developed concepts communicated by a range of concept sketches and sample ideas used to test the parameters of the brief. Now these could probably be in your sketchbook. A preliminary lineup that clearly communicates design intentions for each concept. Now, think about what happened last time you presented. So make sure that your layout works in a way that you can easily present the work. So, not having to swap pages back and forth, etc., etc. Then draft documentation of a detailed timeline that shows evidence of your project management. Now, you won't have to present that in class. I'll be looking at that individually. Let's take a look at your summative assessment. So we can see that we have 4th of March 2021 at 4 o'clock, and your feedback will be on the 1st of April, which is hilariously April Fool's Day, but don't worry, it'll be deadly serious. So your summative submission: a developed sketchbook documenting the design process that shows evidence of evaluation and refinement, a detailed timeline that shows evidence of your own design process and project management, a written justification for the design and production process, a promotional lineup depicting the designs from the front, back and side. Okay, now that will be digital, ideally. The production of one finished toile complete with final patterns. So it's going to require you to manage your time in the studio so you can access machinery. Verbal and visual presentation of your final solution, which you will do here in May. A specification sheet for your final design, including lay plan. Again, lay plan is very important. Evidence research to support your design theories. So a sketchbook full of research for sure. And then, of course, in May, you'll have a 10-minute verbal and visual presentation of your final solution. Let's take a look at your summative assessment, your assessment criteria. So we have 2 criteria based on the learning outcomes. The first one is develop a sustainable design process in response to a defined brief. So let's take a look at the fail and third categories, and let's head to the other end of the spectrum as well. So if we look at a fail, a solution has little evidence beyond a literal interpretation of source material of a design process. So this is really important here, that we're looking at evidence of learning to move beyond, I looked at a tree, so I designed a tree. Okay, let's take a look at a third. The source material is developed through design process and connects notions of sustainable design. So important to see here that you're exploring sustainable design and that you've moved beyond a literal interpretation and that you have evidence that in your sketchbook. So we can see why your sketchbook is so important. Let's head down the other side of the spectrum and look at first and exemplar. Let's take a look at first. Source material is well developed to compose unique solution with multiple layers of complexity for the viewer as a result of informed design process. So that basically says that you've taken some source material, so let's say it is a tree, and you developed to compose a unique solution. So that solution might be, I don't know, an ecosystem that you can wear, and that might have multiple layers of complexity. It might be about reducing waste, but it also might be about getting back to nature, feeling part of the world, oxygenating the body, whatever. But of course, all of that is as a result of a design process that has been informed. Let's take a look at an exemplar. Design process is sophisticated and extends the interpretation of the brief for a refined solution. So for this, we're looking at extending our understanding of what the brief might be. So the brief effectively is to say, work with this company using some of their products to redevelop them to make them more sustainable and more circular. So about kind of mitigating waste is primarily what this brief is about. Now, what we're kind of looking at here to extend the interpretation of the brief is moving beyond that. Okay, let's take a look at the next criteria. Identify a range of problem-solving techniques in response to a defined brief. Let's do the same thing again. Again, that's your second learning outcome. Solution and justification present little evidence of problem-solving techniques. Yikes. So they'll be looking at your garments, looking at your sketchbook, looking at your presentation, looking at your patterns, looking at your tech pack, all of those things. Looking at how you've identified and resolved problems. Now, probably the big thing that's going to underpin all of this is your project management. That you might have run out of time, which makes you make stupid mistakes and makes you kind of hide problems instead of resolve them. That's where you might sit. Let's take a look at a third. Solution and justification present evidence of problem-solving techniques. Great. That's all it is. That's very simple. So you can identify problems and you can solve them. And it might be as simple as, repurposing a particular type of material. You can probably go through a few different ideas, choose the most appropriate, and evidence all of that. Let's head down the other end. Composition is an application that presents sophisticated problem-solving techniques. Ooh, very exciting. So when we're talking about sophisticated problem-solving techniques here, we're talking about techniques that are refined and developed beyond initial ideas. So not here just choosing, trying 3 different ideas for fabrics and choosing the right one, but here it's like reimagining how the fabric could be used. And maybe trying several techniques and then testing those techniques and then refining them further. So we're looking at layers and layers here. Let's take a look at an exemplar. Composition is an application that presents problem-solving techniques that extends the interpretation of the brief. Oof, very, very exciting here. So one of these things, an example of something like this, would be what Hyatt Denim in West Wales, what they do with they have like a no-wash club. Now, the idea behind some of these kinds of things is that people get raw denim, which is a very stiff denim, and they might wear the denim, they get brand new jeans and they wear them for a year kind of non-stop and don't wash them, and they break the jeans in, they get all soft and worn in all particular areas, and every single time they wear them and all the wear that happens on them adds a kind of bit of value to the jeans, so they become unique and individual. Those jeans then are on sold to somebody else and they wear them because they like the idea of like, oh cool, I get the cool jeans worn by the person who hiked up a mountain. Great, so now I've got that embedded into my clothing and the feeling of that. They wear them for a while and then they go to another person and so on and so forth. So that extends interpretation of what something like wearing is all about. We have some fun reading list here. These are all available in our library. Please check them out. Now, they are very, very good books on sustainable design, sustainable fashion. Some of them are a little bit old, so you can see here something from the last century, but very, very important to look at. Some of these haven't been improved upon, so check them out. But here's a supplementary reading list. Now, almost all galleries and museums will have collections you can search online. They contain high-res images and are easy to examine. Now, this is a way for your mood boards, etc., to avoid having the same images as everybody else, because everybody Googled art movements and fashion and got the same first page results. So they decided to use all those images. Look at all these amazing collections. They're everywhere. Check them out. Amazing. Look at all these. Oh my God. We can see anything. But of course, the library has some significant resources, both digitally and in stock. They can be accessed to the library catalogue. So here's the catalogue. Now, make sure you talk with Torrin. She's going to have our librarian, Anna Harrod, come and speak to you guys. And push her. Let's get some more stuff. Let's check out WGSN, which you have access to. Let's check out all the different catalogues and all the different resources that we have access to. Oh my God, look at this. A bunch of new books. Look at all these amazing books. You can check out all of those as well. Ooh, Superman Wardrobe. Such a great book. Oh man, Techno Textiles. Techno Textiles is great. Techno Textiles 2 is even better. Look at this. A bunch of websites to check out all about sustainable design and process. Oh my God, there's a squillion here. There's even more here. Okay. Take the time to watch these. There's a bunch of TED Talks at the back here, which is great. Okay. And as usual, you'll be given a chance to use the loop system. We'll obviously be discussing Studio Access as much as we possibly can this term. But at this stage, no difference to what you had last term. And you can read all of these, like every other handbook, as you go along. Diolch yn fawr, and thank you very much. And hopefully we get to see each other soon, and hopefully we get to spend a little time in person together. Thank you so much. I hope you had a wonderful break, and I will see you soon.